Hi last watchers, and a belated Happy New Year. I wish you all the best for your watch collecting in 2023. Cue the flashback. Back in July of 2022, I reviewed the 1844, a relatively affordable, classically styled quartz chronograph from About Vintage. You can check out that review and learn more about the brand by clicking the link at the top of your screen. The 1844, albeit a fairly decent introduction to the Danish-based watch manufacturer, is by no means their most striking watch. I mentioned at the time that I thought the pick of the bunch, and by far my favourite from the collection, was the 1926, a Blancpain inspired diver. You may feel differently. The 1926 takes its name from the launch year of the first waterproof and dustproof wristwatch, which was achieved by the invention of a hermetically sealed case with a fitted screw-down crown, labelled as the Oyster. It was a concept that helped lay the foundations for what would become one of the world's biggest brands, Rolex, and set the standard for every dive watch that followed. Now, I'm not suggesting that Rolex invented the first waterproof watch. If you do your research, you will find that several other manufacturers had been working on a watertight case with varying degrees of success well before the 1920s. However, Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex, had enough foresight and vision to secure the relative patents that led to the success of the Oyster case design, something that he was savvy enough to monopolise on with good publicity, and one of the earliest examples of celebrity collaborations with the cross-channel swimmer Mercedes Gleitz. The 1926 is available in both quartz and automatic variants, and as I wanted to put About Vintage to the test, I asked if they would send me their range-topping limited edition automatic black vintage on a 5-link bracelet. They met me halfway and sent me the blue vintage on a matching blue NATO strap. In their defence, the black vintage has sold out, as had the 5-link bracelet. The blue was the next best thing. The 1926 has been sent to me free of charge. I'm not being paid by the brand, and I have complete freedom over what I can say in this review, provided I don't offend the YouTube bots. Let's dive into the 1926, starting with its dimensions. It has a case diameter of exactly 39mm, which should be a sweet spot for my 7-inch wrist, and it is. The bezel sits a little wider at 40.1mm. It has a lug-to-lug length of 46.8mm, a lug width of 20mm, and a case thickness, including the sapphire glass, of 13.5mm. The overall weight on the fitted NATO strap is a rather dainty 79.6 grams. The All 316L stainless steel case of the 1926 is entirely brushed, making it ideal for a tool watch. It has a slender looking profile with softly turned down lugs that benefit from sharp contours, that fool you into thinking that this watch is slimmer than its quoted dimensions. None of this matters, as the case is pretty much hidden behind a sumptuously vintage inspired wide bezel. The narrow lugs are there to be seen and serve their purpose efficiently, but they know their place. Unlike the crown, an unguarded understudy waiting in the wings, hoping to make his mark. The crown is a screw-down polished onion design with a flat edge engraved with the About Vintage logo. It's the only part of the watch's design that pays homage to the 1926 Rolex Oyster, a subtle nod to the original diver that I wish was a little larger. The crown unthreads with ease. There is a noticeable ghost position and a bit of a wobble on the stem. The unidirectional bezel has a polished coin edge with soft cut teeth. As mentioned earlier, it's a little wider than the case, which makes it very easy to get to grip with and turn through its 120 rather snappy clicks. There is the tiniest amount of backplay before the bezel securely finds its footing. The flat bezel insert, which I'm assuming is aluminium, is a matte blue with gold tone 15-minute Arabics, 5-minute markers, and a 12 o'clock inverted triangle. It's a vintage vibe that goes down very well in the last watch household. The box dome sapphire crystal adds even further to that vintage look. There's a bare metal rehaut that leads to the matte blue dial of the 1926. It has a printed white chapter ring to mark the passing seconds or minutes, which are slightly longer at the 5-minute markers. There are clean cut out circular indices to mark the hours, the only exception being a triangle at the 12 o'clock position. They are on the small side of the scale for markers, which is quite fitting for its design, an era before maxi dials. The cutouts also highlight that this would appear to be a sandwich dial, sitting on a base colour of 4 patina. The 4 patina is loomed. There is an applied polished About Vintage logo below the 12 o'clock triangle. About Vintage would have you believe that it's a play on the infinity symbol and the measuring of time, but I still think they look like two little fishes, which may be more appropriate for a dive watch. Above the 6 o'clock marker is 3 lines of white printed text denoting the About Vintage brand name, the 1926 at sea designation, of which the 1926 is highlighted in a subtle orange. The final line of text reminding us that this is an automatic. The handset of the 1926 consists of slender polished leaves for the hour and minutes, which have both been filled with the same 4 patina loom as the cut-out hour markers. They are topped with a polished thin stick seconds hand that flows around the dial. I'll add a loom shot here for your enjoyment, which will no doubt be short-lived as the loom is not the strongest I've seen on a diver. I'm guessing it's BGW9, which would benefit from a few more layers. About Vintage have provided the 1926 with a diver-style screw-in caseback. Sadly, they've opted to save a few pennies by laser etching it with a rather lacklustre wave design. It's hardly a great wave of Kanagawa, more of a ripple. There's some script to let us know that the watch was designed in Copenhagen and the initials JH, belonging to the Danish actor John Harbour. Sorry, I've never heard of him, but if you're a fan, let me know if he's in anything that I should be watching. John is a friend of the brand and part collaborator on the 1926 vintage design. The caseback is bordered with the watch's details, which include its 1926 reference and a serial number. Its individual number 668 of 999. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, the 1926 vintage is a limited release, which is almost sold out. I wouldn't hang around if you're considering adding one to your collection. The caseback also includes details of the fitted sapphire glass and 10 atmospheres of water resistance. Alright, it's not a full-fat diver, but you'd pay more for a similarly spec'd Oris. The last bit of information relates to the powerhouse within, a Miyota 8215. The 8215 is a fairly standard and affordable automatic mechanical movement, notable for its noisy rotor. It's a 3-hander with a date complication that can be hand-wound but doesn't hack. Oh dear. It has 21 joules, a power reserve of around 42 hours, and a beat rate of 21,600 an hour or 6 ticks a second. It's rated for accuracy between -20 and +40 seconds per day. This particular movement is giving me anything between +2 and +10 seconds per day. As the bracelet was sold out at the time of shipping, I received the diver on this more than adequate 20mm blue NATO honeycomb strap, which comes complete with case matching brushed stainless steel hardware, a signed buckle and also one of the 3 keepers. I'm not a fan of the extra thickness that a NATO gives to a watch and generally only have them on my slimmest of watches, such as my Glycine Sub, but the 1926 takes the NATO quite favourably and it wears well on my 7-inch wrist. In any case, it's easy enough to remove, as are the bolt action spring bars if you would prefer to wear it on something else, such as a leather strap you may have lying around. The 1926 limited edition Blue Vintage starts at $599 or euros. You can add a second strap for a little more. It's not unusual for the brand to have a 20% promotion going, which will bring the price down to a more palatable $479 or euros. About Vintage don't do sterling, but $479 equates to approximately £396. If you catch them between sales, you can use my code LASTWATCH to get a 15% discount, which I think also gives you an additional 5% discount on top of any promotions they may already be running. And that's for any watch in their collection, including the 1960 racing chronograph. It's certainly worth a try. I'll leave a link to their website in the video description below. I'm not on a commission. The only benefit to me if you use that link is to let the brand know that people are watching my review, which is a good time to ask you to like this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. All About Vintage watches come with a 2-year warranty and will be delivered well packaged in a rather fetching engraved wooden box with a magnetically sealed lid, a step up from your standard cardboard box, which might make them the perfect gift option for that watch fan in your life, even if that fan happens to be you. So how does the 1926 stack up? Well, I can live with the ghost position on the crown for that missing date, but I'm a little disappointed with the non-hacking Miyota movement. That makes setting an accurate time a little more complicated. About Vintage could argue that a non-hacking movement is in keeping with a vintage-inspired watch, but this is one of their premium lines, and given the price, I would have expected a better calibre within. Design-wise, they could have made the crown a little larger, and considered a more worthy stamped case back, or to save embarrassment, they could have taken the Rolex route and left it completely blank. However, I have to admit that the 1926 has won me over. It was a fairly easy job, as I'm a sucker for a pretty face. I love its refreshingly simple, well-balanced sandwich-style dial and faux patina, that wide blue bezel with gilt accents, and the retro-inspired sapphire glass. It's a classy-looking diver, with a nod, as mentioned earlier, to Blancpain and Omega. I can see why the black variant sold out, and although I'm happy to wear the 1926 on the NATO, I know I'll be picking up the 5-link bracelet at the first opportunity. This one is a definite keeper. Feel free to share your thoughts on the 1926 Blue Vintage and the About Vintage brand in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.